Okay, making this just a little while later. Here are the clamps down here with some of the striker pneumatics in it. I'm going to tell you quickly what I've discovered. I cannot say this is the perfect way, but this is some hints that I have come across. Here's a striker pneumatic. These were numbered incorrectly, by the way. When you start removing things from a piano, player piano, you always start numbering the parts from the base. Always. But these were numbered backwards. So, we'll take it out of the clamp, and let's see how the boards are. Okay, it opens. Let's take this piece of wax paper out of it. Now look, it shuts pretty easily. Okay, let's hold it up here. Okay, so it's got a strong hinge. There's no wobble in it, just gently moving it. It opens and closes easily with really no resistance to it, except when it gets about that angle, but it's not going to open that way. Now, there's a couple of things to take into consideration before we start recovering this. One of which is to put into it an internal stop. Such would be this little felt punching. Now, why would you put these into the pneumatic? Well, the people that make these little punchings like you to buy them. So it makes them money. Now, you'll see that when it's inside there, the pneumatic cannot close all the way. All right? It's got a bumper. It acts like a bumper. And that's to keep the two leaves that when you're manipulating it and rubber banding it to close it and everything, a hard crease does not go on the cloth. Because that will wear the cloth out prematurely in a lot of cases. So I'll use hot hide glue. I'll attach it about 3/4 of an inch away from the top edge of the bottom leaf, and that will prevent the pneumatic from closing all the way. Next thing we'll quickly talk about is, we discussed this before. This is raw wood, this poplar. It's raw. And by that, I mean it is dry. It's been kiln dried. So before I cover it, I will take some thin down hot hide glue and I will coat the edges of this raw wood. All right? Because especially the end grain, it's going to suck up glue. And if I don't seal it, there's a good chance that it might develop a bad, the glue joint won't be as tight as it could be. Because the glue will potentially be sucked up by this end grain. So that's another thing to take into consideration. Prime that wood while you have a chance. All right, so I'll do that. The next thing to take into consideration is the span of the pneumatic. And you'll see that when I'm recovering them. But the span is how open this pneumatic is on its open end. It could be all sorts of different opens. But if you took good notes of it, you'll know how far this pneumatic should be open. And you make a jig, in which case I already have one that I bought years ago. And you set that jig so that when you straddle the jig with these legs of the pneumatic, they'll all come out the same span. Some people measure span outside to outside of this leaf to the outside of this leaf. And they call it the span. If you think about it, actually, I think the span actually should be between the leaves. But either way, be consistent and you'll get consistent results. So you need a jig to sufficiently do that. And you'll be happy with the results. So it's not, right now it's not hinge bound. It just opens and closes. That's great. Little bit longer on this leaf. I will sand that on the disc sander that has a guide on it to keep it 90 degrees. And I'll be extremely careful to keep the two leaves still parallel with each other. Other thing is, through the supply hole, I'd like to actually write the designation for the pneumatic. This is the top. This is going to go on the top tier. So I will put a T with the number of the pneumatic as it occurs, numbering up from the base. Don't get confused. So you see here, this is numbered T17 by a previous restorer. And that's not actually the number. It should be T14. So that's what I will number it inside here, T14. So next step will be to recover the pneumatics, and you'll see how I do that. It's about as exciting as watching, well, paint rust. But if this is what you're looking into and want some other people's opinion, then I'll give you what I know. I'm not saying it's the best, but I'm telling you that it has worked consistently for me. All right. There you go. Oh, why in the world have I got this ink pad up here? You may have noticed it. That's a great way to make imprints if you're doing like gaskets on something. Like here's a small surface right here. This can fit inside here. Now this does not need a gasket, but I would put it, if it's something that's no bigger really than this or much wider, I would put it on this ink pad and rub it around and then press it down on a piece of gasket leather and make a good imprint that will guide me to cut the gasket with. I do not believe in covering any piece that has a gasket on it. I pre-punch the holes before I glue it on. I don't believe in gluing the gasket on and then using a drill bit to drill through where the screw holes are, because I don't know. That's just not the way I've done it. So anyway, next up, covering the pneumatics. We'll talk about the two different types of pneumatic cloth, and I'll do a couple of pneumatics. All right.